Good morning. Welcome to the Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners meeting. It's Monday, October the 20th, 2014. If you would take a minute to silence your phones, please, so we don't interrupt each other. I'll open with a prayer, and Commissioner Lynchard, would you lead the pledge for us? Father, we thank you for this day and your blessings unto us, and we pray that you will guide us and direct us throughout the day. Keep your hand upon this board. I pray that what we say and do here will be pleasing in your sight, and I ask in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen. All right. Check the agenda for additions. Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no further additions today.
No additions, Mr. Chairman.
I'll have one, but I'll come back to it. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, we got one on budget modification resolution 2015-048.
Okay. Is it amending one or adding one?
Adding.
Okay. We'll make that item 27, item 27A, and that'll move the expenditure and check register to B.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lynchard.
No additions, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to take just a second to acknowledge Impact 100. They had their annual meeting yesterday, gave away over $1 million in grants to local nonprofits, in addition to the nonprofits that received awards that will have an effect on Santa Rosa County indirectly. One of the recipients was the Santa Rosa County Creek Indian Tribe, so they were awarded a little over $100,000. So. Impact 100 is a great group of women. They do a lot of great work for our area, so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge them.
Okay. I have an add-on to the administrative, and it'll go at the very end of the administrative. It's for park lighting. It's for $3,000 from District 4 in the Navarre Park, and that's an add-on. Mr. Walker, do you have anything to add? I just add Navarre Park. Yes, I did.
Cole had added the site certification budget amendment, that final payment.
We have that one, yeah.
Thank you. We're good.
Roy?
Nothing to add.
Roger? Jane? Nobody down there? Okay. Economic Development Committee, Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two items. The first is information only. The second one will be for action on Thursday. First one is overview of 2014 Gulf Power Economic Development Symposium. Last week, I think all the commissioners went down to Sandestin to attend the Gulf Power Company Annual Economic Development Symposium. We had some great speakers, heard a lot of good ideas about our economy and what we should be doing. So this morning, I'd like to turn it over to Shannon Ogletree to come up and introduce our guest.
Good morning. Yes, sir. I think all the county commissioners attended last week's economic symposium. I think it was a great event. We learned a lot. And like I said, I'm just going to turn it over to John Hutchison with Gulf Power to give a recap of the events and what we may have learned. John?
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, commissioners, and thank you for having me here today, and thank you for your support of economic development. I did a non-scientific poll of all the attendees at the symposium, and the Santa Rosa County Commission had the most county commissioners there. Also, Hunter Walker was there, and Shannon, so thank you for your support. I think it shows your interest in economic development, it shows your support, and we appreciate that. We had 585 registered attendees, business, government, and education leaders from all across the state, all across Northwest Florida, so we had a great attendance. Had 21 speakers address the group, a wide range of experts and authors. But I thought this morning I would just summarize some key takeaways from Gulf Power's perspective and things I think would be of interest to you. First of all, Florida is growing jobs faster than almost any other state in the nation, and that's a good thing. more than 600,000 new jobs since 2011. So something's working right in the state of Florida and also in Northwest Florida. The cost of doing business in Florida is lower than most other states, and I think that's why we're seeing jobs grow faster here. And that's a plus I think we can continue to build on. Quicker permitting, quicker regulatory issues, easier regulatory networks to go through all help us get products to market faster. Florida's doing a good job on that. We need to continue to do that because that's a key attraction point in terms of the cost of doing business. Obviously, the military is a great asset for Northwest Florida from a workforce and a talent standpoint. We have more than 6,000 men and women who are leaving the military service every year in Northwest Florida. That's a great talent pool. We need to continue to capitalize on that. That's a key selling point that Shannon and his cohorts use in selling Northwest Florida. So we do have great talent here, and companies who come here tell us that. That's an asset for us. Government employment, however, is decreasing throughout the region. I think that has a lot to do with sequestration, and that makes it more important that we diversify our economy now, particularly with an eye toward new advanced manufacturing type jobs. Another issue, Northwest Florida's senior population, 65 and older, is expected to double over the next 10 years. And that's an important part of our economy that we need to continue to pay attention to. Approximately 22% of the population in Northwest Florida will be over 65 within 10 years. So we need to keep an eye on that and look how that impacts our economy. So what should we be doing? Those are all interesting facts. But after the symposium, we held a bonus session for our economic development professionals, including Shannon. And we invited Mark Sweeney from McCallum Sweeney to come and talk to us. You may recognize that name. McCallum Sweeney is a consulting firm that's handling our site certification program. McCallum Sweeney also did a competitiveness study for the state of Florida a few years ago, and so we invited Mark to come and talk about our competitiveness as a state. A few takeaways from that. Workforce development is clearly an area that we need to continue to focus on. We need better workforce incentives. Right now we have kind of a reactive approach to workforce. If a company comes, we will reimburse them for their cost of training, and that's a really complicated process, and the companies really don't like it. They have to spend the money on the front end. The state will reimburse them on the back end. They reimburse them for textbooks, but not for CDs. I mean, it's just a really complicated process that we need to improve in terms of workforce development. We need proactive workforce development programs in Florida, such as setting up skilled training centers ahead of time and using those to attract companies to our area. So we have a lot of work to do there in terms of workforce incentives. We need better communication between all levels between education and industry. And we had a panel discussion where we had everybody from K through 12 all the way through the state college and workforce development system. There's a disconnect between our manufacturers and our education system in the state. Now, the good news is that we're addressing that here in Northwest Florida. We've established Northwest Florida Manufacturing Council within the last year that includes educators and workforce development folks, and so we're doing a better job of having communication here than the rest of the state. We just need to continue to do that. It's a key issue. The second thing that Mark pointed out to us is that we need more product in Florida. Now, again, the good news here in Northwest Florida is we have the site certification program, and thank you for your support for that. Santa Rosa County will have 3 sites that'll be certified, hopefully within the next month. This is the only part of the state of Florida that has any certified sites. And so when it comes to attracting new industry here, we'll have a leg up on not only on the rest of the state, but in parts of the southeast by having these sites. And Santa Rosa County has 3 of those sites, which I think is key. We're already showing those sites. There's already interest in those sites. Out of our whole program, we'll have 9 sites certified. 2 of them already have tenants. So it's already working before the certification process is complete. So we need to continue to do that so that we have products. The other thing we need to look at is spec buildings. You know, a lot of the companies that Shannon deals with are looking for a building. And we get RFPs from the state of Florida and from other places. Almost every one of them is looking for an existing building. We need to figure out a way to get more existing buildings in the lineup for new industry. And we're going to work on that at Gulf Power as well. We need more incentives to attract new business, more funding from the legislature to be more competitive. We lag other states in that regard in terms of being able to provide upfront incentives to get companies here. We discussed some communities like Topeka, Kansas, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, who had windfalls from legal settlements that were made and also from some lawsuits they had with some companies. And, of course, you can't help but think about the BP settlement here. In those 2 communities, they put that money in a trust fund and used it for economic development incentives and continue to use it, and it's working very well for Chattanooga and for Topeka, Kansas. We should consider the same with some of the BP oil money if we can. There's a great opportunity there, I think. And we need more funding for promoting business in Florida. The state of Florida spent about $90 million last year promoting tourism, and that's wonderful. Tourism is a great thing. We need to promote it. They spent $0 promoting business. And you've seen the ads on TV from Michigan, from Texas, from New York. Those things are effective. Florida doesn't have the money to do that. And we're going to work with the legislature to see if we can get $3 to $5 million next session to help promote Florida nationwide and talk about the good things that we have here in Florida, particularly in Northwest Florida. That's my report. Overall, I think we've taken a lot of steps in Northwest Florida to be more competitive. We just need to keep our eye on the ball. And I think we're ahead of the state in a lot of areas, and that goes to yourselves and credit to you for the good work you've done, the good support you've had, and we appreciate it and look forward to continue to working together. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. John, I really appreciated the speaker we had from Snap-on Tools also. I can't recall his name right now, but to the fact that, you know, we've got a lot of people in our community that really don't fit into the college program. And for him to express that in the way he did, I like that, because, you know, folks that are linemen for Gulf Power or electricians or even auto mechanics that just don't, you know, see the need when they're in high school or school for a long-term degree and certainly want to better their education as they can, that the emphasis not totally fall on in high school getting a college degree. It's certainly important in a lot of aspects of our society, but there are those out there that just don't fit that bill, and to take them from being a secondary citizen to you're just as important as the next guy, to me was a strong statement to say, and I came away with from their, you know, being in that genre, you know, feeling good about that and feeling good about my vocation, but not only that, thinking maybe I ought to raise my rates at my auto shop. So, but and also, I don't know if Don was going to say anything. I don't want to step on his thunder, but we understand that they're going to have to hire about 6 more people at Gulf Power in the next year. So, Don, if you were going to say anything, I'll let you finish that up.
Anyone else? Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Commissioner. John, just please send our thanks back to Gulf Power. You know, the symposium is a great event every year, and it's growing every year. I forget how many people exactly you had registered this year, but it was
585.
Huge. Yeah,
most
huge
of it.
number. And so we appreciate it. It's always a great event. And
Thank you, Lane. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, John, like Commissioner Cole said, that first of all, John Hutchinson is the General Manager of Community Development, Economic Development. I think that's still your title, close to it.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
John has announced his retirement. I believe that's going to be in November.
Right.
I just want to personally say how much we all appreciate everything you've done, not just for our county, but Northwest Florida and the whole state of Florida. Not bad for an old Mississippi boy. Appreciate Gulf Power Company and everything they do. I'm not sure who's going to try to replace you, but hopefully it'll be someone who brings as much as you do to the table. I know you're not going to go away. I know you're still going to be involved in the community, but we just want to personally say thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that very much. I've had a great career, a great opportunity to work with great folks such as yourselves and learn from folks such as yourselves. So I appreciate all the time I've been able to spend at Gulf Power Company working in the community, and I appreciate those remarks very much. Thank you, sir. Okay, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, that's just for information only. Number 2, discussion of resolution designating Project Airwolf as a qualified target industry QTI pursuant to applicable Florida statutes. There's some backup in your book. I'll ask Shannon to come forward and explain a little bit, then I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Good morning again. Yes, Project Airwolf is a company from the Midwest that is looking to relocate here. And as kind of John mentioned, this company is moving into an existing building into the Santa Rosa Industrial Park. And if it wasn't for this existing building, this facility, I really highly doubt this company would have relocated here, because they would have gone through the building process and they needed to be something up and moving quickly. Also, I think a good selling point for us was the retired military personnel. I think John touched on this also, that the details are basically we have the highest concentration of military personnel for Congressional District 1. So for Jeff Miller's district, we have over 30,000 individuals that are retired military personnel. So going after companies like Project Airwolf and other companies like this makes a big difference. And we're looking at now the skills that these military personnel are coming out with. So when Commissioner Cole or Commissioner Melvin stepped out of the military, we're going to start looking at what type of skills did they have when they left the military. So when we meet with these companies, we can say, hey, this is what they have and this is what we can expect from future personnel. Project Airwolf is a manufacturing company. They're looking at hiring 25 individuals, paying 150% above the county average wage. So their incentive dollar amount is $4,000 per job, and our match is 20% of that. So 25 jobs times $4,000 per job is $100,000. Our 20% match is the $20,000. That $20,000 would be paid out over the course of 5 to 6 years. It's not a one-time allotment, but like I said, spread out over the job creation schedule. So, and this resolution is just one step of getting them applied.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Shannon, John mentioned also that the complexity of getting some of the dollars back from the state for educating some of the new employees. Is there anything being done in the economic development field through Gray Schroop or anybody to change that?
I think through FEDC from the Florida Economic Development Council, a group of economic development professionals for the state, we are working to basically lobby the state to help change that model. As John said, that model is, it works, but we need to make it better. Our competitive states like Alabama and Georgia, like you said, will train people and then train people even before they go to work. And at least they have that skill. So if they get a job, great. If they don't get a job, well, they still have that skill they can go somewhere else and get a job with. But at the current time, nothing's on the forefront of the legislative agenda to really change that.
Yeah, it seems silly, you know, they'll pay for books and not CDs when we're going so much to electronic communication now. It's almost a way of keeping the money in the bank, you know, because, you know, anybody nowadays who's using books. So anything we could do as a board to help you run that up the flagpole, let us know.
Okay. And I think using restore dollars in the near future, when and if that money drops, that could be a good mechanism also for those dollars. And I think it's something that Mr. Helms will be bringing back later today at the Restore Council or tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, just so everybody understand, what we're going to try to do on Thursday is, hopefully we'll do on Thursday, is to approve the attached resolution for the state's qualified target industry Q2I tax refund program and provide the necessary match in the amount of $20,000 for the QTI program. That $20,000, if this company is approved, will come from our Economic Development Fund.
You make that move, that form of a motion?
So I would move that to Thursday. What objection?
Okay. Hearing none, it passes. Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. I had a couple of questions. What's the total cost to Santa Rosa County for this company coming into the county? What tax incentives? What else? The total cost?
Ms. Cantu, here again, the building they'll be moving into is privately owned. So there'll be no incentives coming from the county. Now, we will be required to cover the upfront cost of $20,000 to qualify them for the QTI state funds.
Right, and that $20,000 is in cash?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that standard procedure that you're
Yes,
going to
ma'am.
give a company cash?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't that paid I think what it is, it's paid retrospectively. In other words, they create the jobs and then they document the jobs and then we'll pay 20% of whatever the match is for each job. It's not cash up front. This is based on performance of the company in hiring and documenting jobs and payroll.
So it doesn't just mean they say we're going to hire 25 people
Right.
and you give them $20,000 and maybe 2 or 3 years down the road they hire some people.
Or not, you're right.
And I've asked before about getting the percentage of total salaries. In this instance, they say they're going to hire 25 people. The top 20% salaries, the bottom 20% salaries, and the median salary. It would be a much better indication of how much money they're actually going to pay people, rather than just saying 150% of the average salary in the area. Is there not a way that we can get them to tell us how much?
In the past, we've responded to your question by saying that companies are very sensitive to providing different categories of salaries. They would just like to say that the average salary is. So you start getting into sensitive information and you may lose them.
But they won't help from us to get their business started. So isn't that tit for tat? You do this and they do that?
Again, the salaries, Ms. Cantu, the salaries are documented once they're created. The salary, the payroll is documented, so we know specifically how much each job is created.
Okay, thank you. And you talked about the training. Does George Stone help in training aircraft mechanics?
I'm not sure.
That's over in Escambia County?
Shannon's shaking his head, yes.
They do. And how about Lachlan Votech? Do they train people as well?
Shannon's shaking his head no, so that means obviously not. But if we can do a good job of recruiting this kind of industry to Santa Rosa County, I'm sure that Lachlan would be interested in participating.
And we know that they're going to dispose of hazardous materials properly. I think that's one of the things with aircraft-connected jobs.
Say that again.
With aircraft-connected jobs, getting rid of the hazardous materials, cleaners and things like that, oils.
They'll have to meet DEP standards, so we'll make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I had a question. Is this a one-time $20,000 or is it continuous?
It's one time based on performance.
Okay. And as I was reading through the statute 288.106, at 11B, it reads, the department may waive the average wage requirement at the request of the local governing body recommending the project and Enterprise Florida, Inc. The department may waive the wage requirement for a project located in a brownfield area designated under statute 376.80 in a rural city, in a rural community, in an enterprise zone, or for a manufacturing project at any location in the state, if the jobs proposed to be created pay an estimated annual average wage equaling at least 100% of the average private sector wage in the area where the business is to be located. I just want to make sure that there has been no waiver requested.
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Yes, sir. All right, now we're ready for the administrative committee. We have 8 items. Item number 1 is discussion of non-exclusive interlocal subscription agreement related to financing qualifying improvements by the Florida Property Assessed Clean Energy Funding Agency. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, this is a carryover item, I believe, from 2 meetings ago. If you remember, the PACE people made a presentation to the board. I think the property appraiser and tax collector are here. I believe they've met with the representatives of the PACE and may have input in what you're going to do. I mean, we're at the point to do either do it or don't do it.
Thank you, Mr. Walker and Mr. Chairman. A couple weeks ago, the property appraiser and myself, the county attorney, Rory Andrews, general counsels for the Property Appraisers Association and the Florida Tax Collectors Association all met on a conference call and in person to discuss the PACE program and the benefits and risks of such a program here in Santa Rosa County. And there are some potential benefits, but there are a lot of risks involved as well. And I left that meeting with some grave concern, and Mr. Brown expressed concern to me because we know individuals are going to come forward and say they want these additions or renovations to their home made, but it would not be on the trim bill, the truth and millage bill, the reminder notice. It's not a bill. The reminder, the trim notice that's mailed out each year. So it's not going to show up on that. It's just going to be on their tax bill when it comes in. And when you look at this on the surface, it looks like it's a win-win. Win for the economy, for economic development, win for the taxpayer. There's no risk to the county. There's zero risk to the county. There's zero risk to the investor. And there's no risk to the company that's administering it on behalf of the investors. But there's considerable risk to the homeowner, to the property owner. There's a devastating potential for unintended consequences. Because if this goes on the tax bill, it has the exact same protection that a tax certificate has. A tax certificate, as you all know, is a first lien. It takes priority over any other lien that's against that property. It takes priority over the first mortgage. I took a look at a tax bill this morning before I came in here, and a $68,000 a property with an assessed value of $68,000 would, as you've heard from the PACE folks, could qualify for 20% of the assessed value, or could qualify for a loan of about $13,000. There's an origination fee, a finance fee of 2.5%. There's also an administrative fee added on top of that, and the loan could be anywhere from 4 to 7%. And then when you start tacking on the additional 2% that goes to the tax collector's office, it turns into what is essentially a very high interest loan. Normally a second mortgage loan is for an interest rate less than your first mortgage. But in this example, this individual's tax bill goes from $1,081 to just a little bit shy of $2,000. So their tax bill is going to double each year. Last year, we sold 4,519 certificates. I've had more people in my office crying on my shoulder due to the despair and imminent sale of their home. And as you all probably know, once that tax deed is applied for, there is nothing in Florida statute that you nor I or anyone can do to stop that process. It has to go forward, and as the saying says, that property is going to be sold on the courthouse steps to the lowest bidder. To the highest bidder. And generally, it seems to me that people who are looking for non-traditional means in order to finance obligations of this nature are probably the folks that are most at risk for not being able to prepare financially for that upcoming obligation. And they're going to be the folks that are least adapted to, I think, manage their finances to be able to meet that obligation. So I think we're going to be seeing folks that are going to have some serious heartache down the road. There are other programs out there designed to help people like this. It's my understanding the Council on Aging already has a grant program where people can make these types of repairs to their home, whether to make it more energy efficient or to prepare for hurricane preparedness. Now, that does only apply to the residential market. It wouldn't help a small business. They can't apply for that program. But small businesses, if they're not able to meet this financial obligation, they put their entire business at risk. And I say that losing one's business is just one step away from them losing their home, because when that income's taken away, that'll happen as well. Placing one's personal financial obligations on the tax roll is not what the tax roll was designed for, and the collection of one's personal financial obligations is not what our forefathers designed the tax collection process and the collection of delinquent taxes. It's a very serious process with serious complications. This morning I spoke with Alfred Pollard. He's the general counsel for the their office is the Federal Housing Finance Agency. They oversee all the loans for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And when I spoke with Mr. Pollard, we had a long conversation about the PACE program. And he told me that, Stan, we have a new director for the FHFA, and we have serious concerns about the PACE program. We have a new policy that's gone into effect that any community choosing to participate in the PACE program, that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae will not purchase loans in that community. The reason for that, as I've stated before, is that it puts at risk the collateral they have on that loan, because a PACE program obligation would take precedence over the first mortgage. In truthfulness to you and in full disclosure, the PACE program would financially benefit my office. We collect a commission for every tax that we collect. But I think the potential negative consequences to the residents of Santa Rosa County far outweighs any positive financial gain my office or this county could gain from the PACE program. And my final thoughts on it, on the PACE program, I think that Gulf Power would be in an excellent opportunity to develop a loan program whereby they could assist homeowners to make, and business owners to make, energy or hurricane preparedness changes to their home or business. And they could use the prior year as a baseline and take the reduction in their energy consumption to pay the loan back. But I hope that I've given you a few thoughts as you all deliberate on making this decision, and give you something to think about. And if you think of any additional questions you'd like for me to discuss with you, I would look forward to that and would be happy to do so. Does anyone have any questions? That's really all I have.
Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Stan, not really a question, but a comment. I had problems with this program. I'm glad you brought a lot of them to light this morning. My feeling was if we were going to consider this program, that we put language in there that this particular agency was not exclusive to this, but I've said, you've said enough this morning for me to feel like I can't support this program. So,
Well, you know, the program's brand new. They've just gotten their funding. I don't think there's been a single loan made. They were waiting to get their funding. But, you know, there are other states who have very similar programs like this. There's one out in California. I would say let's see how other counties in the state of Florida are going to do with this program and see, is it going to be properly managed? We don't have to, it's not like this has to be no forever. It can be, let's see how this thing works. Because I know out in California, there are some problems. There's some serious problems. There have been allegations there's not a lot of oversight. And it's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. And there are situations out there where general contractors are charging $28,000 for something a realtor says you could get for $12,000. Putting someone's home at risk for loss is very serious, and I think we need to take a very careful look at this process before we jump in with both feet.
Mr. Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree, putting someone home at risk is something that we certainly need to consider. But that would be the case whether they went out and got a home equity line or they went through the PACE project. It's still a lien on their home. And even if it's homestead, if it's a mortgage for the improvement to that homestead, then they're subject to foreclosure, even if it's a second or third or fourth mortgage. I think it's an opportunity to open up financing for projects that a typical bank is not going to be particularly interested in. You know, solar energy, small-scale solar energy projects, very difficult to finance through traditional means. Solar hot water, you know, those installations cost $5,000 to $8,000 typically. Most people aren't going to go out there and pay $5,000 or $8,000 to get that installed, just because that's a big expense. But when you realize that your payback period on that is extremely short, you know, 3 to 5 years. I mean, that's the best value going in energy efficiency. Then it becomes more and more attractive. Rather than paying for it all up front, you can pay for it over a period of years, pay for it over 10 years. It's on your tax bill. It's not a tax. The tax bill is the method used to collect. And that's why the interest rate is low. The 5% is a good interest rate. You said 4 to 7 is the spread there. If it's 5%, the 2.5% administrative fee, that's a one-time upfront charge. So that 2.5% is spread over the life of the loan. So on a 10-year loan, that's 1/4 of a point per year you can add to the 5%. So the rate's still 5.25%. If your office charges 2%, that's 2% of the payment amount, not 2% of the mortgage amount every year. So it's essentially 2% over the life of the loan. So again, 1/10 of that would be 0.2. So now we've got the rate up to 5.45. That's still a pretty good rate in today's market. And again, it opens up this opportunity to people who otherwise wouldn't have it. I see the benefit really being to our small businesses. Because if you have a small business and you have 3 or 4 air conditioners in your business or whatever your situation is, and it comes time to replace them, rather than replace them with 14 SEER or 12 SEER or whatever the cheapest air conditioner going, you go through PACE, you upgrade to the higher energy efficiency units, and you can fund that through the PACE program. So you benefit over the long run. Sure, there are risks, just like there are in any other situation. I mean, it's a market, you know, the free market at work. You don't have to pay $28,000 for an improvement that costs $12,000. Go out and get bids. You're not tied to any particular contractor. The thing you said about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I've not heard that before. That does concern me, so I wouldn't want to move forward until we get that question answered. But I don't want to dismiss this just because we're worried some people are going to stretch themselves too thin. They could already do that. This is just an opportunity for people and small businesses to access some of these energy improvements that really do make sense, and really people will benefit financially from these, but they have to have their foot in the door first. They have to have access to the upfront capital to install the improvement, and that's where we're lacking right now, because traditional financing doesn't work for some of those improvements. Thank you.
Yeah, you made some very good points, Mr. Lynchard. I agree there are some good benefits for small businesses. It just, a lot of it reminds me of some of the financial shortfalls our leaders have put us through in the past, where there was not they didn't properly look at someone's ability to repay a loan. With the PACE program, all they look at is, have you filed bankruptcy and have you been late on your mortgage? Your mortgage is the last thing you're going to let go. I mean, they could have the worst ability to repay that financial obligation, and that's not even really going to be taken a very close look at. They're looking at the tip of the iceberg of their ability to repay it. So, but you made some very good points. I agree with you. For the small business owner, it's an additional avenue that they would not otherwise maybe have access to.
I know, and that argument that's asking us to hold somebody's hand, through this financing project. Help me, protect me from myself. If we just don't allow the program to continue at all. Again, if somebody's going to get overextended, they're going to get overextended. This just puts a funding mechanism in place where they can explore those capital improvements.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, Commissioner Lynchard, I think on the 2% that Stan gets, it's on the principal and the interest. He gets 2%, so that would
every year he gets 2% on the principal.
And the every payment he gets.
Because you and I spoke about it, and it was 2% of the payment amount.
The payment amount, which would include principal and interest.
Not every year. You don't pay the full principal every year. You pay a payment every year.
I know, but he's going to get 2% over the life on every payment. That would include principal and interest, right?
Right, but it's 2%. It's stretched out over the entire term.
Right.
So you get 2% of the principal, but that's stretched out over the life of the term.
And 2% on the interest.
And if you divide that by 10 years,
I understand,
you're
but
around 0.2%.
he's going to get 2% of the payment. If that includes principal and interest, he gets that.
I understand.
The reason that we...
but it's still 1/10 of the original principal amount.
The reason I asked for the postponement was for us to kind of look into this. You're not noticing anybody, so basically they took me out of the picture because we're not trimming them. It's all on Stan. It's the commission's desire to make this funding, but I think with the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, because if you don't pay your taxes, that becomes a first position. They have a real concern about lending in Santa Rosa County if you do that. And if that's the case, we may help a few, but we're going to hurt many. And that's why we're up here we're alerting the board of the things that we've investigated to see and saying, you might want to hold off on this thing until we see what the full ramifications are and let somebody else be the guinea pig. Because I've often heard, not that I've seen this, Commissioner Salter, that the state, if it's a good deal, they want us to have it. They don't want to keep it for themselves. They want to pass that down to the counties, kind of like the mapping situation. So in abundance of caution, I would ask the board to consider, and Stan and I spent a considerable amount of time on this, to say, you might want to just wait, and especially in light of this Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac thing, it is a big concern.
And that's the first time I'd heard of any issues with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, so I wouldn't want to move forward until we get that question answered.
Yeah, I'll forward you the information, phone numbers, who I spoke with, and there are, when we met with PACE the folks from the PACE agency 2 weeks ago, they told us the names of 7 or 8 other counties who had already signed the agreement, jumped on board, were gung-ho to get started. And I've spoken with 2 of those tax collectors, and they have grave concerns over the program. So again, it's y'all's decision, and I'm going to do, if you all vote that we're doing this in Santa Rosa County, we will assist in every way to make sure the funds are collected and they're distributed to the appropriate parties, just like we would with any non-ad valorem. I just urge you to do your due diligence, look at the process, and let's make sure that we make a good decision.
Absolutely. I want to thank you and Greg both for tightening down on this and drilling into the details. I'm very disturbed if this impacts the Fannie Mae. You know, the marketability of the note is primary. And if this has the potential to take first place, then nobody in their right mind is going to lend you money against that. So we may be helping a few and just killing what is now our economic recovery, which is our new home sales. Yeah. So that's the last thing we want to do. Can you get that gentleman that told you that on the phone to reduce that to writing?
We spoke on the phone.
I'm sorry?
I spoke with Mr. Pollard on the phone this morning. I'll forward that information to
understand. My question was, would Mr. Pollard be willing to send you a letter or the board a letter or whatever, say, pursuant to my conversation?
I'm certain that he would, because I asked him.
To have that.
I told him that I was on the board of directors for the Florida Tax Collectors Association, right, and this was on our agenda for our upcoming quarterly meeting, and I asked him if he would be willing to speak to our board of directors by telephone to express the concern of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and he said he would be happy to do so. Okay. So based on our conversation, I'm sure he will follow up in writing our conversation of this morning.
I'm going to be very hesitant to support this until I have some better information. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other thing too, you know, we already got an organization that works with business. That's the SBA. I think this funding for business-wise should go through SBA. They're already set up. They're an organization that's been there for a long time. Why would we want to throw another layer on top of there? So I don't know how we could call out the private homes, but I would think any funding for business should, through the funding that's available, should be run through SBA.
Commissioner Lyncher, do you know whether the agreement could be amended so that it would apply to small businesses but not homeowners, or do you think that'd be contrary to the intent of the program?
I'm not sure if you could carve out businesses or not, something to look into. But SBA, if you've ever been through that process, that is an order of magnitude more complex than the funding that's available through PACE. So SBA is a long-term solution or a long-term process, whereas the PACE program was designed to be quick turnaround. You can propose an improvement, get it financed, and get it installed. You wouldn't go through an SBA loan to do a $10,000 improvement, typically.
Yeah. And one last thought, I would be curious to know what our local board of realtors thinks on the matter. They might already have a grasp on how it could affect the real estate market, because that is paramount to the success of Santa Rosa County.
I apologize for leaving the podium and coming back, but one thing that I asked Lane of them, what happens if they default? Who is the collection people? And they never would answer that. So if it's going to be defaulted to the county, then Stan's going to have to start doing the foreclosure, and we're going to need more attorneys for Roy. There's so many questions that aren't answered in this program that I think our advice is that we need to seriously look at this and pull back from it and let these others, because the others just, PACE went in like almost happened here, and the commissions voted to approve it because it sounds good on the surface. A lot of things sound good on the surface, but when you start, the devil's in the details, and we're starting to uncover some of those details. So in abundance of caution, I think Stan's recommendation, I support him totally, on what he's found out and the work that he has. And it's going to cause work in my office to do that, but not near to the magnitude of Stan. We'll do what the commission wants, but again, in abundance of caution, I think we should really peel back from this for a while.
Well, the additional work is minuscule. If we need to hire an additional staff person, we'll take care of it. So the extra work is not of grave concern to me. There was something else I was going to say, but yeah. Thank you again for your time. I know what I was going to say. If we are going to take a step back and see how this goes in other counties, we know we're going to have to wait a minimum of 2 years, because if counties who are currently using the PACE program, if those loans default, and they would be delinquent on their taxes come April 1st of the following year, by Florida statute, a certificate holder has to wait a minimum of 2 years before they can file for a tax deed, which would then force the sale of that property. So we would have to probably step back for a few years so that we can see a track record how many of these folks are running the risk of losing their property. So this wouldn't be a 1 year, let's hold off and see how many loans were made. It would be a few years, let's see what the effect of these decisions are.
Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Nichols, when is the meeting that you're having where you can discuss with the other tax collectors from throughout the state of Florida? You said there's a quarterly meeting. I mean, it's coming up in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yes. How about if I follow back up with you and give you the exact date if I don't?
I mean, from the surface, this program, it looks good. I've got a 6 kVA photovoltaic system on my house. It was because Gulf Power had about $500,000 that they released, and it went in like 7 minutes. It was gone. And it's where you can almost pay for the project, about 75% of it, and then you get some tax breaks back where you're out of pocket minimal money. With this program, there's so many issues that trying to do your due diligence is even tough on this, because I know you've spent a lot of time on it, Mr. Brown has. I looked at it, I called people who install solar systems, and some of them said, you know, just from looking at it, they think it would be great because obviously they're going to be able to get more work out of it, but they didn't want to do anything on the backs that would be bad for the individuals in the community. That's not how they wanted to make their money. And they still haven't gotten back with me because they said the more they look, it's really hard for them to find information. I think the best approach would be for us to step back, let's see what other communities are doing, what other counties do, and see what ramifications they have. I just hate for us to rush something through. We haven't had it in the county the last 100 years. You know, it doesn't mean we need to make the decision today or Thursday.
That meeting is on December 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, that was going to be my position is, let's just make sure it is what we think it is. No sense of urgency on it.
That's right.
I don't necessarily agree waiting 2 years. Maybe after January the 1st, after your meeting, we can revisit this.
I'll be happy to report back to you.
Thank you very much.
And to get clarification on the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae issues, that to me would be a deal killer right there. I mean, you couldn't afford not to get a whole county red line.
Yeah.
We'll hold off on that.
Ms. Cantu, are you in support of this? Because if you're not, the board is going to push this on down the road unless you want to advocate for some reason that we should support this. So are we. I move that we pull item number 1 and wait for the due diligence, and I do so without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 2 is discussion of a resolution of the Emerald Coast Utility Authority, ECUA, to provide, operate, and maintain a solid waste and recyclables collection and distribution system in Santa Rosa County. Mr. Walker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the really it's kind of a joint resolution that the both entities will require as we move forward with the action taken by the board at the last meeting pursuant to your franchise areas in the north end. We'll need to do this resolution And also, there will be the interlocal agreement or franchise agreement. I'm not sure what that'll look like. That'll be up to the attorneys. But if I understand it, they will pass this resolution at their meeting Thursday afternoon, and then we would propose just to approve this at the rezoning meeting Thursday night. I think isn't that the timing?
That's correct. The enabling legislation for the Emerald Coast Utility Authority says that if they can provide service in adjacent territorial jurisdictions, but there is a process. They have to go through the resolution. They have to pass it first, and then it's approved by the host county. And their meeting is at 2, ours is at 6 of this Thursday.
I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. Do we know how much they're going to charge the customer for pickup?
Yes, ma'am. That was included in the proposals.
I didn't see a copy of that. It wasn't in the backup.
It was in the last meeting backup when the board approved accepted the proposal.
Do you remember how much that was?
45, seemed like it was $45, $46 per quarter and some change. Currently, my service in Pace area is $70 per quarter.
When we talked about this before, we talked about grandfathering those current personnel who are picking up garbage from people throughout the county, and you said you were going to grandfather those people, but you did want to make a change in their requirements, that they have a certain size vehicle. Is that true?
It hasn't changed from the last time we discussed it. The only imposition that this board placed on that was that this does not apply to dealers, to business people in the business of hauling garbage that operated at anything 15,000 pounds or under. And we beat this up last time you were here. It's the same situation.
But that wasn't the conditions that they were working under now.
I'm sorry?
The stipulation of the size of the vehicle is not the requirements now.
No, there was no discussion of a franchise up until the franchise came up. We have several small operators, 3 I think it is, in the county that operate 15,000-pound gross weight vehicles and under. And we carved out for those because we didn't want to hurt any existing small mom-and-pop businesses. And that's what we've done, and nothing's changed. So
you said you were going to grandfather those current collectors.
Yes.
But you did want to make a change.
You don't understand.
You're right, I don't.
No,
because grandfathering means that these people that have been doing something use the same rules that they've been working under.
Let me try this with you, okay? The 3 people that have been operating, these 3, maybe it's 4, my memory is there's 3, all operate vehicles below the weight of 15,000 pounds, okay?
So there's no operator
Wait a minute, just listen. The 3 people or 3 businesses that we're trying to protect, they are private businesses, and they do business with homeowners in Santa Rosa County, and their trucks, fully loaded, weigh less than 15,000 pounds.
So their requirements are not going to change?
No, their requirements are not going to change.
Okay. That's what I'm interested in.
Okay, and that was the same answer last time. Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions before we move?
We'd just like to note that that will be on your agenda for your 6 o'clock p.m. rezoning meeting Thursday.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This was 2 separate franchises, correct? What we talked about before, that even though it's the same company, it's going to be 2 separate franchises.
That's what we've been discussing.
Now, as far as your discussion with them, it was $19,000 per franchise. Are we going to charge 2 separate franchise fees, or since it's the same company, is this going to be 1 fee?
I don't think that's been decided yet.
Okay, so we haven't had any discussion with ECUA about that?
We're going to be hammering out the terms of the interlocal agreement, and that'll be addressed at that time.
And when will that happen?
Well, it's going to be at the direction of the board. The resolution is the first part of that, and then there will be a draft of an interlocal agreement that will be brought back to the board for your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have anything before we move on? I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 3 is discussion of the resolution authorizing submission of the FY 2015-16 Florida Recreational Assistance Program, the FRDAP grant application in the amount of $50,000 for improvements to the Navarre Park. Details are in the backup. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, just one quick question. You had an add-on for later for
Yes.
some lighting. Is this the same park we're talking about? Different parks? Different parks?
Yeah, different. This 50,000 is to be spread over more than one. The three,
Okay.
the 3,000.
Navarre Parks then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
said Navarre Park, I assumed it was Navarre Park.
3,000 is some of the lights, the underground wiring for the lights are no longer safe to operate. Two different things. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't notice you.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. Is this the same repair or addition or whatever to Navarre Park that was just going to be the restrooms?
No, ma'am.
It's not connected with that?
No, ma'am, it's not. That's strictly a volunteer. Thank you. Name and address, please.
Rob Williamson, 7018 Summit Drive. Just curious, this 50,000, is this part of an overall, does this fit within the master plan of the Navarre Park?
The improvements do, and it was, I know what Ms. Cantu was confused with, is we had submitted a larger grant before for this project that included the restrooms. They had been excluded from this. This will be all state money because it's the $50,000. But yes, the kayak improvements and the other improvements that we will do are part of that.
So there is a master plan for this Navarre Park?
In the Navarre Park, it probably should have been worded a little tighter than that. The Navarre Park means to most people from the south end, the area there at the Chamber of Commerce and the park on the beach is where these funds are focusing.
I'm probably not asking the question the right way. I'm just trying to see if there is an overall master plan for the development of this park and if this proposed $50,000 grant fits within the framework of that master plan. If there hasn't been a master plan created, then just say there hasn't been one created, and then I'll know that this is a side, basically.
And to answer your question, you're correct. There's no master plans per se for the park, but the things that we're going to do is we're going to install special needs playground equipment on the park. We're going to, I think, repair the basketball court, add picnic area with the shade trees, and then an ADA accessible kayak launch, and then some landscaping. So this is
all needed improvements, to be sure.
But not of very much of much substantive improvement. There are going to be changes, repairs, enhancements.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, I asked, so which particular park is this? I understood you say this was for parks in general, so which park is this for?
It's the splash pad area, the visitor information center.
Okay.
So it's the same park as the restrooms. It's the same park as the $3,000 for the Christmas, the lights that's the added item.
All right.
Okay, I'm the one that mixed up the apples and oranges then because of the Navarre Beach request for washdown stations, et cetera. Yes, ma'am. Here's our expert.
Just wanted to give a little bit of additional background. As Hunter had mentioned, we actually had applied for this grant in last year's cycle, and part of putting together a grant application is having public input, and we actually accomplished that via 3 different meetings last year for, if you include the communications that we had with the Navarre Beach Chamber and Foundation Group. But there was one meeting held at the Navarre Visitor Center in which the public was invited to provide input on the project, the Parks and Rec meeting, and then we also had a public hearing here in the Board of County Commissioners room, which we will also do on Thursday. But long story short, between the needs that Tammy and the Parks Department had identified, talking with the Navarre Beach Chamber Foundation, and then, like I said, the public input, these items that we are proposing to do were all items that were indicated as a need in the park.
I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, passes. Item number 4 is discussion of a resolution authorizing submission of the FY 2015-16 Florida Recreational Assistance Grant application in the amount of $200,000 for improvements in Benny Russell Park. Comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just a typo correction. In our backup, the first page says that the required match would come from District 1 recreation funds. Then on page 3, where it gives you the breakout, it says county cash match District 4 rec funds. So I'm sure Commissioner Williamson would appreciate that, but I think that's just a typo.
Yeah, it's a typo.
I'll take every bit that I can get.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chairman, I just would ask that the board support this. There's been some money allocated in the past for some projects out there from my district and from Commissioner Salter's district. We haven't been able to do those projects just from the funding standpoint. This money would help us to be able to complete some stuff out there that we've been working on the last few years. So I would appreciate the board's support on this.
Thank you. And with the correction that Commissioner Salter verbalized for us, we're talking about Districts 1 and 3. And if you'd make that change for us by Thursday, I recommend we move this. Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. In your backup, you have listed here where the total improvements is $440,000. And that's an existing park, is it not? We're just making repairs and maybe an addition or two?
If you'll notice on your, where you picked up the amount, we outlined the 7 or 8 improvements that will be included, including the special needs playground, the picnic area, basketball, shuffleball, handball court, walking trail, 2 tennis courts, restrooms, and then support facilities, the parking and the lighting. So they were all included in the same page on the 450.
Do you know offhand approximately how much that park cost in the first place to build?
It was done with volunteers and was done with a legislative appropriation from the state. No, I don't know.
You don't remember how much it cost?
That would have been the late 1990s.
And whose area is this in?
Ms. Cantu, this is in my district, and basically, to get funding for this grant, you can't just say, I'm going to do one project and get the match. You have to score on a system that they have, and by doing some of these different things, some of them that we've already had in a plan to do, but we haven't been able to fund them, it allows this park to score high. If you go out to Benny Russell Park on a Saturday, the place is packed. I mean, you go during the week and it's got a lot of people, but you go on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you cannot find a pavilion for birthday parties. What we're looking to do is the tennis court project was something I believe it's been worked on for about 3 years now. Commissioner Salter can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's been worked on for a long time trying to get tennis courts out there. We have a local PATA, the Pace Association of Tennis. They are going to put forth, are going to agree to doing some work and then raising some cash, because you have to have a percentage of money from a private organization. I've also have some commitments from some other businesses who would like to help us build an extension to Benny Russell Park that would be all-inclusive. And what that is that is a 100% ADA compliant park.
Good.
And when you do it at Benny Russell, a lot of times people think all-inclusive needs to go, by itself. You need to put the children that have the disabilities that use walkers, that use wheelchairs, right there with all the other children playing. Because you have parents who have a child with no disability, you have a child with a disability, and also it goes further than that. It creates an environment where a child could be in a wheelchair playing in this 100% ADA compliant park. That part of the park will be used by all other children because it's going to be new and they're going to see that it's got the hard ground. They're going to want to come over and play right next to that child. And what that does, that gives the child with no disability looks next to him and sees this child in a wheelchair playing and says, you know what, they're a lot like me. Right. And then it puts that child in the wheelchair playing right next to the child with 100% no disability, and it says, you know what, I'm a lot like him or her. So it creates an environment where these ADA compliant playgrounds, and you mix and match the children. I think it will be a great project for our community. I don't know if there's one in all of Northwest Florida, so this money would go a long way in what we're trying to do at Benny Russell Park, and also go a long way in creating that mindset of, you know what, all children deserve a place to play.
I appreciate that, and that was my next question, whether or not we have those facilities at all the parks. Are we working on it?
We have certain portions of parks, and Tammy can talk a little bit better on this than I can, but we have you have to meet a certain percentage of say, your swings or different things like that. And in Santa Rosa County, we've really been cutting edge. When I became a commissioner and looked at it, we're moving a lot further and faster than the other counties are on this, but there still is a long way to go.
And as far as ADA is concerned, how strict are they at making sure that you have those facilities everywhere? I mean, do you have a certain amount of time before you...
Tammy could speak better on that. There is going to be some, I believe 2016 is to be a little bit more compliant, but from what I've seen, everything we've done in the last 2 or 3 years, we're starting to move to that ahead of the game. So we're not going to have to go in and change everything out here in 2016. We're already preparing for that when it does change.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 5 is discussion of a settlement of a claim with Ashley Heist Parker in the amount of $100,000 and William Dustin Parker in the amount of $35,000 for a 2009 motor vehicle accident as authorized by the county insurer, the Florida Association of Counties Trust, FACT. Details from the backup. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 6 is discussion of the proposal in the amount of $59,293 from the SCS engineers for 2015 semi-annual water quality sampling of Santa Rosa County-owned landfills as required by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Details from the backup. Unless there are questions, I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 7 is info only, and that's public hearing. Item scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Thursday, October the 23rd is none, and that requires no action. Item number 8 is an add-on by me. It's $3,000 from the District 4 funds for lights in the Navarre Park. This came up, I think it was Thursday of last week. They were going through their strengths. The Navarre Chamber and the volunteers that decorate in the Navarre Park every year. And the county has been providing lights for decades, and we have some strings now that someone has deemed are no longer safe to run the string out, and this would provide the funding to replace those strings, those Christmas light strings. And I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. That concludes the Administrative Committee. Next is the Engineers Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Our first item is a discussion of a lionfish presence on our Navarre Beach reef. As the board knows, in 2012, we had a deployment in the Gulf through the Navarre Beach Marine Sanctuary, creating a snorkeling reef just a couple hundred yards offshore in the Navarre Beach Park. In June, I got some correspondence from some of the snorkelers and divers that we were still clear of lionfish, and just last week, one was spotted, and one of Mike Sandler, who's here today, brought it to my attention, and also brought to my attention that the Fish and Wildlife Conservation have adopted new rules which allow spearfishing of the lionfish in otherwise protected areas that do not allow spearfishing. I'm going to get further information and follow-up with Fish and Wildlife, but Mike had suggested we proceed with a permit process so that we'd have notification of the snorkeling public posted on the beach anytime there was eradication going forward. And so bring this up as a discussion and ask for direction from the board. I also fortunate to have Robert Turpin, a former member of our Marine Advisory Committee. He's also the Marine Resource Officer in Escambia County. But in case y'all wanted to add anything to the discussion, feel free.
While they're coming to the microphone, I'll just add a quick word. The Florida Association of Counties has adopted this as an eradication program that will include the invasive species that are not inherently found in the state of Florida, the pythons, the lionfish, all sorts of exotics that seem to find their way in. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Okay, Mike Sandler, 1905 Williams Creek Drive, Navarre.
Robert Turpin, 2 Madrid Avenue, Gulf Breeze.
Yeah, one of the things that Fish and Wildlife has recently done is change some of the rules, and actually Robert is better to speak on that. But as I've traveled around the world diving and seen many areas, although lionfish are normal over in the Pacific, they are not native to this area. And in the Caribbean and Central America area, a lot of governmental agencies have been hesitant to enforce lionfish eradication on those non-invasive species. And what's happened is, because of their lack of urgency to take care of the problem, those lionfish have grown at huge numbers. Lionfish in the Atlantic virtually have no known predators, and the reason for that is that the native species don't know that some of them can eat the lionfish. It's a new creature, they don't know what to think of it. And so it is very critical to eradicate those non-native species. That's why Fish and Wildlife has been very active in that eradication process. And so we need to take some action on that before they get out of hand. And I think Robert can speak about those issues a little better, but I think public safety is the #1 factor. We need to not only eradicate those, but we need to come up with a very simple, safe process so we don't have people walking through the public swimming areas with spear guns.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an example of what a lionfish eradicator looks like without the dangerous tip. They're about this long. The projection it never leaves the operator's hand. It's permanently attached to the band. We just removed a lionfish off of the Pensacola Beach snorkeling reef last Friday. So these things are typically found farther offshore, but because they have venomous spines, they are somewhat of a public safety issue. And as your existing rules for spearing provides, you would need to have an exemption or exception for this kind of activity that provides the public that safety and also compliant with current law.
One of the major problems that we found, I'll yield to you in a second, Commissioner Salter, and the Florida Association of Counties really gave this a hard scrub down. All of the state, all of the counties that border the Atlantic and on up all the way into the Gulf are on board with it. The egg mass from this fish is a gelatinous mass like pond frogs make. You know, it clumps together and looks for the world like frog eggs in a pond. But nothing will eat that either. And the main reason why the economic impact to Florida is you haven't seen it yet, but these things, just like the rest of Florida, love finfish. So they're consuming our grouper and all the other things that people come to Florida for fresh seafood for. So they're having a severe impact on that crop. Not so bad right now here, but in those areas you see out in the other areas, it's an out of control situation there. Commissioner Cole, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've read several articles and been keeping up with this, and Mike, I appreciate you bringing it to the board, that we go ahead and approve this, because it's, from what I've read, they breed very quickly, have no known predators, as you said. My question is, will they be able to identify, like if you're out there spearfishing or pole fishing for them, would these same people be able to, if they found a cluster of eggs, be able to go ahead and capture that cluster so we could eradicate that way also?
Typically, the egg mass is going to be invisible. We're not sure of their exact spawning timing. I've never seen one, and I've killed a couple of thousands of these over the last few years. But I would like to acknowledge some other work that Santa Rosa County, your Extension Service, is working with us, as well as the other areas in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. There's a Gulf Coast Lionfish Coalition, and through our Sea Grant agents and other staff, we're all working together to get a handle on this problem.
I'd just like to add that if, with your permission, that we can work with the Beach Administration Office, come up with a simple process for permitting that doesn't cost any money, but we need to make sure that there's a safe process in place and it's easily identifiable that individuals and the type of equipment that they use to go out, because the only way to get out to the reef is to go through the designated swimming area, and we don't want people with spear guns walking through that area.
All right, and we appreciate your inputs to the staff, and I'm sure the staff will bring it back to us when they're ready. This is an information-only item. We don't need to take any action on it today. Thank you very much for the discussion. We appreciate it. Next item is discussion of the Navarre Beach chair and umbrella vendors. That's under attachment B.
Yes, the board had directed staff to meet with affected parties relative to the beach and umbrella issue that came to light. We had a number of people approach the board to discuss the issue earlier this summer. We were so close to the end of the season, we had asked to have a meeting with them, discuss the need for an ordinance if necessary, or some interlocal agreement, whatever we may need to do to address the issue. We had that meeting. The summary of that meeting was included in a memo in the backup. And essentially we had a very honest and open debate, a vigorous discussion. We had people from both sides of the discussion, some people supporting county regulation behind the condominiums in the commercial core area. We also had representatives from homeowners association and property managers who felt there was no need for the Santa Rosa County to become involved at this time. And so with that summary and the discussion, we have a number of affected parties who are here today to discuss the issue. The thing that we were asking the board for was, number one, a decision, do we need an ordinance, and is the board interested in addressing the permitting and usage of the public beach behind the condominiums? Establishing a mechanism whereby the homeowners association, if we do decide we do want regulation, the homeowners association would actually be able to control that beach that is adjacent to and behind them. Historically, that was their property up until the adoption of the erosion control line in 2005 in support of our renourishment project. Now it's the toe of the northern berm. This is all now what used to be their property line was here, is now north of the berm. And so that's direction we're asking for. Also, is there any issue to address compensation for commercial use of the public beach? And then lastly, just in the weeds, if you will, whether we're going to allow reservation-only chairs or we're going to allow the proliferation of prospect chairs where people put them out anticipating they're going to lease them during the course of the day. And so that was what we'd ask in the memo. Certainly would love opportunity for everyone to speak today.
Thank you very much. Would anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this? Robert? Name and address, please, for you.
Good morning. Robert Coley, 8271 Gulf Boulevard, Navarre, Florida. I was up here I've been up here at least twice to speak to this issue, and the homeowners associations that are on Navarre Beach don't see the need for having an ordinance to come out and to have the police come out and decide whether an umbrella is 3 feet apart or if there's other problems. In our case at Navarre Towers, I'm president of that association. We have had no problem with any issues. Roger, I would doubt that you've had any complaints from anybody from Navarre Towers. And I just don't see the need for it. I think a lot of our associations have sent you letters expressing that same view, and we'd like for you to consider not doing an ordinance. We think that problems can be best handled by the homeowners associations that are out there on the beach. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, I think we all had plenty of email that reflected just what Robert said. Roger, I was wondering, that meeting, did we keep minutes of that meeting? And do we have a percentage of people that were there for and against?
No, we didn't. We took notes. We didn't take meetings. There is a sign-in sheet. I guess we could poll our memory, but it was split. I mean, I've numerically 50-50, 60-40. Opposed, 60 opposed, 44. I mean,
okay.
But it was equal. The debate was equally vigorous on both sides.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we strike this from the agenda and go back to the way it was prior to the prior to it. Let the homeowners association handle this and basically keep government out of this portion of what goes on our beach.
I was at that meeting that Roger's talking about, and the only two complaints I heard at that meeting, Roger, was from people who were not part of the homeowners association, but actually people who were owners that came and complained about the umbrellas being too close together. That was one complaint. And somebody else was complaining about the fact that they put umbrellas out before the people are actually ready to use them and taking up that space. In every case I know of with the homeowners associations, they can handle those problems. They can specify how far apart they want these umbrellas to be and whether they can put prospect type umbrellas up or not. Each association has its own set of rules that they contract with the vendor, and I just think that's the easiest way to handle it. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Linda Coley, 8275 Gulf Boulevard. I am the president of the Navarre Beach leaseholders, and if you think y'all got a lot of emails regarding this, I got 3 times as many, and not one single person was in favor of the county regulating the beach chairs. So I just wanted to let you know, and matter of fact, there's probably 3 or 4 condominiums represented here today. They took their time to come out here and tell you how they feel if you want to listen to each and every one of them. Thank you.
Does anybody else from the condo associations want to address this?
Good afternoon. I'm Betty Evans from the Navarre Beach Regency Homeowners Association. You know, we appreciate the way you guys represent us, and on the beach we try to represent Santa Rosa County. I think our beach service does that in a great way. We have a diversity out there. We're a small, intimate, family-friendly beach, and I think taking the power away from the homeowners associations to choose who represents their owners, their guests, and you would be a big mistake. I don't think it's the way you guys want to spend your time or our money, and we really want to stay exactly like we are. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to add? Yes, sir.
I don't want to, Rob Williamson, 7018 Summit Drive. I don't want to take up any more time if there's going to be a decision that was thrown out about removing from the agenda. I didn't know if you guys are going to move forward with that. Then
go ahead and make your comments if you just keep them on.
I'm just curious. It was this board that initiated that staff have this meeting. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
I just think we have to be very careful when we start talking about adding additional regulations of any kind that could restrict small business growth or competition. I think that needs to be the absolute last resort before we consider that. And I know that every member of this board has said publicly at one time or another that, you know, you're pro-small business, that you want limited government, and I think now is an opportunity for this board to send that message loud and clear, and I hope you do this morning. Thanks.
Thank you. Historically, yes, sir, come on up.
Gary Baroker, 8499 Gulf Boulevard, Unit 606, Navarre Beach. I'm also the president of the Pearl Navarre Beach Condominium Association, and we would be against this ordinance. There have been a few issues, but most of those can be handled by the condominium associations, and I believe that the county now has the ability to issue a permit every year to any beach vendor to get that box. So if there's a problem that you're not satisfied with the vendor, you have the ability for them not to continue. So I think that would be the first option. And, you know, 90% of the people that are using those chairs are in front of those 10 condos that have the beach rental available. And those condos, association can decide to do it or not do it. And it's worked well for a number of years. And we think it should stay that way. And we don't feel we need extra regulation and be taking away that ability to manage that beach behind our properties. We treat it as our own. The beach vendors do help keep it clean in the summertime. That's part of their responsibility in our contract. But from November 1st to March 1st, we're making sure that we don't have trash out there. We pick it up, we dump it out. You know, we treat it as if not only we are proud of it, but the Santa Rosa County can be proud. So again, we feel we don't need the additional ordinance to do what we need to do to provide beach service to our guests and owners of Navarre Beach. Thank you.
Permits.
Yes, just for clarification, Mr. Baroker, we do not permit the. No, that's part. We do not have that ordinance in place. Those boxes.
Turn your light back on, please, sir, so you're on the record.
Well, I'm just telling you, no, sir, there is not. But we do and have allowed them, even before the 2005 adoption of the ECL, we allowed the boxes to go out, but there was no permitting process. There's no ordinance addressing those. Those we have allowed.
So the beach vendors don't come to you and every year and get a permit to be able to come on the beach to put those boxes out in the fall and then come back and get them in the spring?
They do not.
Okay, then I've been misunderstood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The
Commissioners,
Homeowners Association, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize.
If the Homeowners Association before 05 took care of this, when the tow line changed, the leases ran to the mean high tide, and now they run to the tow. Homeowners associations out there have done an outstanding job of adding to public safety. They've hired, some of them notably required that the vendors employ certified lifeguards, a lot of really positive stuff. Like anything else, there's always a hiccup here and there, and I'll yield to you in just a minute, that causes something like that to come before the board. The last thing we want to do is look for something to regulate. If the homeowners association can fix it, you know, and take care of it, that's fine. I'm sure this board would deeply appreciate it because we get enough email and there's enough traffic a day. I guarantee you each one of these 5 men spend an hour, hour and a half a day on the internet just answering constituent complaints, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to tie down the issue of permitting. It sounds like maybe, but
leave no trace ordinance.
Yeah, we have.
Leave no trace ordinance is what I'm referring to.
Yes, in answer to the question, we have tent permits where people ask to come put up their tent. We do have the leave no trace ordinance that people can apply for to come in, and I assume that's what he's alluding to. but it wasn't for specifically set up for beach vendors, although they may be exercising that. So I will stand corrected. There is an ordinance that only addresses the leave no trace, which is relative to our turtles, but we don't charge any fees for that permit, and matter of fact, I have very few that come through that I can recall.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yes, sir, Commissioner Cole.
The leave no trace ordinance is working well for its intent and purpose?
It does. It generates complaints whenever we collect beach chairs and personal property that's there.
Okay. That's a separate item, though. Mr. Chairman, I'll put my comment a while ago in the form of a motion.
Any discussion from the board?
I just wanted to add, to be on record, to say that I think that the homeowners associations on Navarre Beach are going to know a whole lot better what they want on Navarre Beach than a commissioner from PACE. So I definitely agree with them.
We're a new committee assignment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
R from Shamuckla.
All right. Commissioner Cole's motion is to strike item number 2 from the agenda, and he did so without objection. Hearing none, passes.
Item number 3 is a discussion of the preliminary plat for Cambria subdivision. This is a 170 lot subdivision. It's located in Working District 1. Yes.
I'm sorry. Is this one is ready for Thursday? There's no outstanding contingents like we see from time to time?
This one, all of these items I'm going to present are all trying to get there. We'll make our final cut for the agenda on Tuesday, but these people have asked to be placed on the agenda in case they can get all the...
But they're working a punch list and other things right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, we'll move this to Thursday subject to those completions.
Item number 4 is a discussion of the preliminary plat for Holly Hills subdivision. This is a 55 lot subdivision in Working District 5.
You ready? All right. Details there. Any discussion from the board? Recommend approval without objection.
And just for the commissioner's information, we'll change this from working districts back to the voting districts, and that the board has decided. Our staff hasn't got our map redone yet.
Hearing none, that one passes.
And item number 5 is the construction plans for the aforementioned Holly Hills. They are working to get preliminary plat and construction plans approved this week.
Okay. Recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes.
And item number 6 is the approval for the Bonneview subdivision, Unit 2. This is a 48 lot subdivision located in Working District 1.
I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Time is now 10:40. Let's take 10 minutes and be back in place. 10 minutes till 11, please.
All my beach people left.
Please make your way back to your seats. We have concluded the engineer's report and this Public Service Committee, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of approval of a modification to the 2014-2015 Hazards Analysis Agreement as requested by the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documentation. There's backup in your agenda packet. Unless there are any questions, I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2, discussion of authorization to purchase computer-related equipment in the amount of $17,985 from Dell, Inc., based on quotes received by the IT department. These purchases were included in the FY 2015 budget. Is there any questions? I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3, discussion of approval of the request submitted on behalf of homeowner to execute a subordination agreement to be recorded in connection with a refinance of the first mortgage at 4319 Rice Road, Milton, Florida 32583, in the approximate amount of $64,509. Again, there's backup in your material. Unless there are any questions, I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4, discussion of authorizing staff to process an amendment to the SHIP Local Housing Assistance Plan and the Home Annual Action Plan to include a reconstruction strategy and to allocate $80,000 in home funds to that strategy as recommended by the SHIP Committee. Mr. Comillion, do you want to address this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is a generic action relative to our housing program, housing plan. Their modification, we took this action to the SHIP Committee and then, of course, to you. I will note that what drove this action was a substantial rehab project that we discussed several weeks ago that far exceeded the substantial rehabilitation program limits. I wanted to make you aware that since that time, in working through the process of what we've been doing, we did determine that parcel had a reverse mortgage on that property, which may very well preclude us assisting in that project. So I want to make you aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Comillion. Any questions, comments?
If there is, in fact, one of those reverse mortgages in place, that goes to the head of the line. It's just much like what we were discussing with the PACE situation, so we might want to take this one under advisement to be sure.
Absolutely. This is not related to any particular project. This just enables that strategy as we move forward. So we would evaluate each specific project on its own.
Okay. Okay. And did you recommend that?
I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5, discussion of authorizing staff to grant currently approved PUD, PBD, and PID projects one additional 12-month extension, after which time the site would either revert to its original zoning designation or the owner must resubmit their project for renewal through the standard rezoning process. There's backup memo in your agenda packet. Any questions about this? Commissioner Salter?
Mr. Chairman, nothing to do with this, but it has to do with the concept. And we can talk about it later, but I'd like to see staff address when we approve a rezoning and we condition that rezoning, for example, the developer paved the road, I'd like to see if we can make that time specific, and I'll give you an example. Up on 10 Mile Road, where there's been a lot of paper company land that's sold, several of those rezonings, we conditioned approval based on the developer paving the road. In many cases, they partnered with us and we jointly paved that road. What we have now is a developer who had a rezoning approved 4 years ago, and he's on the front end of 10 Mile Road. So it's about 1.5 miles of dirt. Then everything past the dirt's paved. So I'm getting a lot of calls now from residents up there who want to know when we're going to pave the dirt road. So it's been 4 years. The developer supposedly has no interest in doing what we required him to do. So it's not fair to the developers who do what they agreed to do versus one who doesn't. So at some point in time, I'd like for staff to address when we condition a rezoning, especially on the road piece of it, that it be time specific. Didn't have anything to do with this today, but as we go forward, I want to see us address that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Melvin, did you have something?
No, sir, that's, he nailed it.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Salter, what kind of time frame are you thinking? Just to...
I don't have the answer yet. I just want us to look at it, make sure it's reasonable. If you could tie it to other projects along that same roadway, here again, I depend on staff to give us some direction on that. But it's not fair to everybody else when they do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay. Then I will move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 6, discussion of approval of the NSP program closeout and authorization for the chairman to sign all related documents. I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And that concludes public services.
Public Works Committee, Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 items today. The first is discussion of proposal from Pensacola Concrete Construction Company, Inc., PCC, for installing 160 linear feet of 18-inch liner in storm drain on Circle Drive in the amount of $30,150.40 based on comparison shopping and funding from Road and Bridge Reserves. Mr. Whitfield, do you have anything you'd like to add on that? I think you spoke about this in the past. It was some new...
Yes, this trenchless technology would be the best way to attack this particular problem. I noted in a memo to Mr. Walker in your backup that if we were to use the traditional method of simply digging up the old pipe and replacing it, because the pipe would, that's the other alternative, we would have to relocate fences. There are a number of trees that would have to be removed. There's a small building that would have to be moved and placed back that's right next to the drainage easement. And then there's a concern about sediment transport because this culvert does terminate into a canal. So because of all these concerns, we feel like this trenchless technology of lining this pipe is going to be our best way to resolve this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. If nobody has any questions, I'd like to move to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 2, discussion of acceptance of a 20-foot wide drainage easement on the west side of the Curtis Green property located at 6911 DeLisa Road. I'd like to move to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Number 3, discussion of amendment of the Phase 1A traffic signal maintenance and compensation agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation. Mr. Whitfield, would you like to add to that?
Yes, this is just this amendment is really an interim amendment is the way FDOT is describing it. There will be a further amendment in the future in the coming months. But basically, the board approved a signal maintenance compensation agreement with FDOT where we get reimbursed for the maintenance we do, the work that we have that we primarily contract. But we get reimbursed for that. Actually, this amendment that we're discussing today is certainly to our benefit because it takes some of the responsibility from the county and the maintenance of mast arms. And so this is certainly something we would want to move forward with. And then there will be a later amendment, and like I said, in the future that FDOT is continuing to work with counties on to hammer out some issues that have been a concern to a lot of different counties and municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. I'd like to move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That concludes my report for today.
All righty. Next up is Budget Financial Management Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of bids received for annual road striping contract. Overall bidder meeting specifications is Coastline Striping Incorporated. I'd like to move that to Thursday. Objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2 is discussion of bids received for annual signs and reflective sheeting materials. Overall bidder meeting specification is Osborne Associates Incorporated. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-025 in the amount of $2,372,958, to carry forward prior year electrical franchise fee balance of $1,408,642 to the Economic Development Reserves, excuse me, and $964,316 to the Road and Drainage Reserves, and I do so without objection to Thursday.
Hearing none, it passes.
Discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-026 in the amount of $64,278. Carry forward authorized but unspent funds set aside in the District 4 Recreation Fund, the Navarre Beach Sea Turtle Conservation Center, as approved at the August 28, 2014 Board of County Commissioner regular meeting. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5, discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-027 in the amount of $142,066 to reinstate the needed taps for Holly Core from Economic Development Reserves as approved at the October 24, 2013 Board of County Commissioner regular meeting. The total to be paid is $355,166 in 5-year increments of $71,033 beginning in fiscal year 2014. This is for fiscal year 2014 and 2015. Mr. Chairman, I did have a question on, through the chair to Mr. Blaylock, as far as where Holly Core may be with design and construction plans or any movement forward on building a new motel.
Yes, the Holly Corp have an approved development order to proceed with the construction of their 160-unit hotel. I do not have a construction schedule time frame, but I do know they've gone through the process and received development services approval and a development order.
Okay. Was a caveat of this for the tap fees a starting date on construction?
I'll defer to
The amended lease agreement calls for commencement of construction within 6 months after the amendment of the lease, which was early June. And they're supposed to be complete with construction with 18 months after that. So they had a 6 months commencement of construction in the amended lease.
Okay. All right. Hearing that, then I'll move this Thursday's meeting without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 6 is discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-028 in the amount of $124,672 to carry forward E911 fund balance for previously authorized but uncompleted purchase of Intrado positron Viper system upgrade in the E911 program fund. I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 7 is Budget Amendment 2015-029 in the amount of $4,548 to fund the purchase to install 4 100-watt dusk to dawn lights and 1 30-foot pole, wiring, conduit, and labor expense of $3,048, and to place a Gulf Power night light at McAllister Park for $1,500 from the District 2 project fund approved by Commissioner Cole. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 8 is discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-030 in the amount of $182,175 to equally distribute excess revenues from the electric franchise fee to each of the 5 district project funds as approved at the September 11, 2014 Board of County Commissioner regular meeting. I do so to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 9 is discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-031 in the amount of $6,853 for the 2 individual pieces of playground equipment for the Navarre Sports Complex from District 4 project funds approved by Commissioner Melvin. I do so to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Rob Williamson, 7018 Summit Drive, Navarre. Just a quick question. This may be for staff. Is there currently a District 4 Parks Master Plan? And if so, does this budget amendment fit within that plan?
Yeah, there's no master plan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 10.
Move that Thursday? Okay. All right. Noting the comments, move that to Thursday without objection. It was approved by Commissioner Melvin for movement. Item 10, discussion of budget amendment 2015-032 in the amount of $188,052 to carry forward unspent Santa Rosa County boating improvement funds to the boating improvement reserves in the general fund. I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 11, discussion of budget amendment 2015-033 in the amount of $269,503 to recognize Federal Home Program, HUD, grant and allocate the substantial housing account and the first-time homebuyer in the grant fund, and I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 12, discussion of budget amendment 2015-034 in the amount of $775,819 to carry forward funds from the prior year and to allocate to the first-time homebuyer account, substantial housing account, and the emergency repair account in the SHIP fund, and I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 13 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-035 in the amount of $32,349 to authorize the remainder of the 2014 DRG 14-02 for October and November through the contract ending 11/12/14 in the grant fund. I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 14, discussion of budget amendment 2015-036 in the amount of $21,150 to carry forward unspent funds from tree mitigation reserves in the general fund to be used for the purpose of purchasing, planting, and maintaining trees on public property, and I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 15, discussion of budget amendment 2015-037 in the amount of $5,374 for authorization of miscellaneous $788 and permit expenses of $4,586 for the Baghdad Mill Site Park in District 2 project funds, and I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 16 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-038 in the amount of $5,600 to carry forward donations received in the fiscal year 2013 from the Baghdad Waterfront Florida Partnership and the Blackwater Pirates Organization, and authorizes for expenditure for improvements to the Baghdad Mill Site Park in District 2 project funds. And I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 17 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-039 in the amount of $207,430 to carry forward unspent loan proceeds and TDC cash carry forward of $107,393 for the completion of the Milton Baghdad connector, and recognizes the refund from CSX of $100,037 for the Henry Street rail pedestrian improvements in the TDC fund. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 18 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-040 in the amount of $60,000 to carry forward District 2 Recreation Fund match and recognize CPI revenue for the expenditure in the fiscal year 2015. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 19, discussion of budget amendment 2015-041 in the amount of $433,628 to recognize the remainder of the 2011-2012 DIG award, DIG 2012-02, in the amount of $126,369.25. 2012-2013 DIG award 13-05 in the amount of $200,000, and the 2012-2014 DIG award, or DIG 14-01, in the amount of $200,000 to purchase land or obtain restrictive easements around Whiting Field as identified in the Joint Land Use, or JLUS, agreement. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 20 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-042 in the amount of $46,991 to pay back the general fund from District 2 project funds borrowed in the fiscal year 2014 for the purchase of arena panels and bleachers for the June 8th Arena as approved at the October 24, 2013 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. I do so without objection to Thursday's meeting.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 21, discussion of budget amendment 2015-043 in the amount of $50,000 to correct mathematical error on budget amendment 2015-023 in the 5 district recreation funds. I move that to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And let me clarify something with the budget director. Was that the one we discussed earlier? Okay. Would you explain that before I move?
Sure. You all approved $1,585,000 to carry forward into the 5 districts, and it should have been $1,535,000. It was an oversight on my part. The correct amount was carried, but was not determined on the first page of the budget amendment.
Okay. So it's just a mathematical or inadvertently changed the number from a 3 to an 8. So.
I saw a 3 as an 8.
Okay.
That was all.
Yeah, not a problem. So that corrects that. Mr. Chairman, I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 22 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-044 in the amount of $5,922 to reallocate ICP funds authorized in the general fund but incompleted for improvements to the South Tower site in order to bring R56 grounding compliance. I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 23 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-045 in the amount of $64,402 to carry forward and reallocate unspent funds authorized but not completed for the 9/11 Emergency Communication CAD system in the general fund and the enhanced 911 program fund, and I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 24 is discussion of budget amendment 2015-046 in the amount of $206,086 to recognize community transportation grant fiscal year 2011 to 2012 of $29,412 and remaining fiscal year 2012-2013 $158,674 and the local match of $18,000 from the general fund. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Next item is item number 25, and that is discussion of budget amendment 2015-047 in the amount of $54,033 to carry forward local match as required by Section 5310, notification of funding for the purchase of public transportation replacement vehicles and allocate expenditure in the grant fund as approved at the July 24, 2014 BOCC regular meeting. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 26 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-177 in the amount of $2,576,403 to carry forward the impact fee fund balance and distribute $229,876 to multi-purpose paths, $49,876 to the 5 Points project, $333,937 into Area 1 reserves, $65,689 into Area 2 reserves, $1,893,426 into Area 3 reserves, and $3,599 into the administration reserves. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, was the next item
That's
26?
Yes.
26B, or was it 27A? Okay.
20, I think we made it 27A.
27A, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't write that down. My apology.
No problem.
Okay, next item is 27A, which will be a add-on item, is to carry forward unspent funds for the site certification process for Jeff 8's site as approved at the April 24, 2014 Board of County Commissioner meeting. That is $3,250. And I'll move that to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And 27B is discussion of county expenditure and check register, which I'll sign off on and have to your office for approval on Thursday, so I'll move that to that date without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that completes budget and finance.
Thank you, sir. Anybody here for public forum? Name and address, please, ma'am, for the record.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I just had a question about the beach chair vendors. Who assumes the liability? I mean, there's no permit issued. Who's responsible if there was some sort of an accident or something with the beach chairs?
Mr. Andrews?
Well, it would be whoever would be responsible for the accident.
Pardon me?
Whoever would be responsible for the accident. There's not a liability indemnification for or against the county.
Okay, so the beach chair vendors do not have to have any kind of liability insurance. Would that be correct?
They're not subject to permit at this time.
Okay. And I was just wondering, Mr. Cole, how much is currently in the District 2 Parks and Recreation Fund?
Ms. Bell?
Those are being consolidated and shoved around. I don't know if she's got...
District 2?
Yes.
140,000, roughly. Yep.
140,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else come before the board? We are adjourned.
$1,000